So for the people that don't know, I'm with Jackie the Joke Man, the head writer of the Howard Stern Show for 15 years, right?
15 years. I met him in 1983, but
Yeah.
went full-time in 1986.
Right. And for the people that don't know who you are, what else could you tell them?
I was a very bad musician.
Yeah.
And when I realized I was never going to make a nickel, I quit music.
Right.
And started in comedy.
Yeah.
And to steal a line from Rodney Dangerfield, when I quit music, I was the only one who knew I quit. Okay. And I started doing comedy, and I worked in a recording studio and put out a couple 33 and a third LPs,
Right.
3 of them. And by 1982, I was selling them at gigs, and I worked in Washington, D.C., and a guy told me, this club owner told me about this guy that got fired that was going to NBC in New York.
Well,
And
you got to explain why Howard got fired back in 1982 from Washington. That's an amazing.
You
and
know
I
what?
give him I
There's
give him credit
so
for
many
that.
versions of that story that I still don't know exactly.
You don't know which one's the real story.
Supposedly the real story. He swears he never made the phone call, but supposedly a plane
Hit the bridge.
hit the bridge in Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
and he called the airline to ask if that was going to be a regular stop.
Yeah.
But he swears he had his finger on the
Yeah.
receiver, and he never made the call.
I will defend Howard on that point, because there were things that you do to make sure you're not actually calling the airline.
But the point is, that was ridiculous because it went out over the air, and that
Right.
was the offensive part.
Right.
You know. But supposedly he was already leaving that station.
Right.
And was going to NBC already. But I didn't know from him. Didn't know from anything back then.
See, I'll
so-
defend him because he didn't actually need to call the airline for that to be shocking and to get people talking about his radio show.
Right, and he didn't need to do that because he already had a gig in NBC and nobody was going to hear it. There's
Right.
a million things.
Oh wait, he had a gig before he got fired. You think?
Yeah, supposedly he was all set to go to
I
NBC.
did the same thing.
So,
My big mayor's prank in Boston. Everyone's like, "What? What are you nuts?" And I'm like, "I'm not nuts. I'm smart." New York was calling, and they basically told me, they're like, we want to hire you and Anthony, but it's too bad you just signed that contract. And I'm thinking, bing, I'll figure this one out, because we used to work in radio.
Hey, boss, I was with your sister.
Right. We used to work in radio at a time when you fucked up on the radio and got fired, you always went to a bigger market for so much more money.
You failed your way up.
So me and Anthony were making a name for ourselves in Boston, and all of a sudden New York came calling. There were 2 stations. It was K-Rock and NEW. Both wanted us. We met with all the guys that you know, and they're like, "It's too bad that you're under contract." I'm like, "Yeah, it's too bad." Wink, wink. I saw what they were basically telling me. They didn't say it, but I'm like, I got it, because I understood radio back then. So I went back
It's
to
like
Boston.
saying to a girl, it's a shame you got a boyfriend.
Right. And
you
within
know.
a month, April Fool's was coming around. I'm pacing my apartment. I'm like, bing, I got it. I called Anthony. I said, "Anthony, you know how all these dopey radio guys do the April Fool's pranks that are so stupid?" I'm like, "Why would anyone even believe any of this shit?" I go, "Let's knock it out of the park." So I decided that that day we would tell Boston that the mayor of Boston died in a fiery car accident while on vacation in Florida. And it worked like a charm. We were out of a job 2 weeks later. And then I fly down to Washington to meet Dan Mason, because he wanted to make sure we didn't have horns, right?
Right.
And me and Anthony are like, "Whoa, we're going to Washington for the night." We packed for the night, and we drive all the way out to some office park to meet Dan Mason, who was head of CBS programming. Because
Right.
I'm like, "I did my job. We're moving to New York." And we had to go down there to make sure we didn't have devil horns, and then to get his approval, like, "All right, these guys are okay.
They're human beings.
And they're responsible and all that." And we thought we were going to stay in Washington for the night. And it turns out Dan Mason talked to us for 2 minutes, and he goes, "Can I call you a cab back to the airport?" We were back in Boston for dinner.
It's always radio.
Yeah.
If he can
But the
save the
same-
price of a hotel room.
Yeah, but the same thing. I went to Boston knowing I got to get us fired so we can move to New York.
That's so great.
And I kept that under my hat for many, many years, and now I finally talk about it, because
You know,
people are like,
it never went through my mind that they might have been dangling NBC and he needed to. I don't think that was. You know what? If that was something he calculatedly did, he certainly would have told people that he calculated.
Well, there's also a time that you would get away with a lot of that stuff. Then radio changed when you started doing those over-the-top things. They were firing disc jockeys left and right. Didn't matter how big you were. In our case, with the St. Patrick's Cathedral incident.
I
We
could go hoarse from how much I defended you. You know, if you're not Catholic or if you're not religious,
Right.
that's a building.
Right.
It's a fucking building.
Well, it was in the vestibule. Hopefully that matters, but maybe it doesn't. But
no, but no matter what, it's a building, and they weren't killing anybody. They were making love. You
can relate to this though. So the company had Howard and you guys in the morning, and it had me and Anthony in afternoons, and we were crushing an afternoon drive. And I always had in the back of my head, you know, when you're delivering those type of ratings and the amount of money they were bringing in, I could say whatever the fuck I want on the radio as long as I didn't F with the FCC rules, right? Oh,
right, that they would have your back.
Oh, boy, did I make a mistake. We had a 40-something share in Cleveland. We were number one in New York, Boston, Washington. There's a few more markets, Philadelphia. And
I think rule number one in the world is don't fuck with the Catholics in Boston.
Well, I mean, but it was a corporate umbrella. What Mel Carmenson got scared that it would not only affect the radio division, could affect all these other divisions. Right. And I was showing the door, and man, I was depressed for 2+ years over that one. So
why don't you just go home and pray?
Yeah. But I got to say about the mayor's prank, because it was brought up today. So late in Mayor Menino's life, he came to Sirius XM. He was pushing a book. I tried to get him on the show so bad, and I told everybody, you know, that could get to him and all, I want to apologize, because I was a dopey shock jock back then.
Right.
And, I had some reflection, and I decided, you know, it's the right thing to do. Right to the end, he didn't want anything to do with me. And I was like, but I at least got the word out that I was sorry and that I want to, you know, say it publicly to his face.
You made your bones.
He passed, whatever. Jackie, this was an absolute pleasure. I guess we're not going to meet Tom?
We'll do it another time. 1988, I think it was, I came home, and there was a blue pickup truck in my driveway. And my friend Billy, that's here with Tom.
Yeah.
It was his pickup truck, and he was driving.
Yeah.
And sitting shotgun was Tom. And between them was this little man that looked like me with a joint in its mouth and a little tiny Budweiser can. I said, what the fuck is that? They said, well, there's a Gary puppet. We think there should be a Jackie puppet. I said, where'd that come from? He said, Tom made it. And I said, you know what? If I bring that into the Stern show, they're going to say, here's Jackie promoting himself. They're going to throw it in the garbage. Yeah. You got to come in and pretend you're fucking with me. I said, Tom, you got a girlfriend? He said, I have a beautiful wife. So I said, call up and come in on the show. So I'm sitting there one day. Gary comes in and says, hey, Howard, the guy in the lobby's got a puppet looks a lot like Jackie. He says, really? Anybody with him? He says, I got a really pretty girl with him. Bring him in. And they brought in the Jackie puppet, and they took turns making fun of me, and I was like, oh, man, get rid of that thing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm winking back and forth to Tom. So he was responsible for one. That was one of the main things on the show
for a long time. And so that was the guy that came up with the Jackie puppet.
They came up with the idea and created it out of thin air.
Well, he's a celebrity then, man.
He's a good guy. Real sweet.
Jackie, this was a pleasure, man. The tour of your house, really opening up for my podcast. And
I loved it.